I'm glad you're here because today we're diving into a moment almost no one talks about, the exact psychological earthquake that hits a narcissist the second they realize you didn't chase them. They expected panic, tears, desperate apologies. They predicted you would break before they ever had to, but instead, you went silent. And that silence didn't just surprise them, it shattered the reality they built around controlling you. If you've ever felt guilty for walking away, or wondered whether your silence even mattered, let me tell you this. It mattered more than any argument, any explanation, any emotional closure you could have offered. Because narcissists don't fear being hated, they fear being ignored. They live off reactions, any reaction, and your refusal to play the game strikes at the core of their identity. When they walked away, they didn't walk away with confidence. They walked away with expectation. The certainty that you would run after them, call them, text them, fight for them, because that's what their past taught them. People always chased. People always returned. And you were supposed to follow the same script. They didn't leave to end things. They left to test something inside you. They wanted to measure your loyalty, your dependence, your emotional vulnerability. They wanted proof that you feared losing them more than they feared losing you. This is the foundation of their entire power dynamic. But the moment you didn't break character, the moment you didn't collapse, the moment you didn't beg for them back, that's the moment their fantasy cracked. Because now, for the first time, they were forced to confront a terrifying question. What if you were never as dependent as they believed? Your silence wasn't just silence. To them, it was rebellion. It was betrayal. It was the destruction of a carefully built illusion where they always had the upper hand. You didn't just ignore them. You broke the gravitational pull they believed you could never escape. And this is where things take a darker turn. Narcissists depend on predictability. They script your behavior in their minds long before you ever speak. But when you refuse to chase, you became unpredictable, and unpredictable people are dangerous to their sense of control. You see, narcissists don't fall apart when relationships end. They fall apart when the narrative collapses. The breakup itself means nothing. But your reaction, or lack of it, means everything. Because if they can't predict you, they can't use you. And if they can't use you, they lose the emotional fuel that sustains their ego. And right now, whether you know it or not, your silence has put them into a psychological spiral. They're rereading old messages, replaying old arguments, scanning your social media, and trying to decode the one question tormenting them day and night. How did I lose control? So stay with me, because in the next chapter, we're going to dissect exactly what happens inside their mind during this collapse. The fear, the anger, the obsessive thoughts, and the desperate attempts to rewrite the story so they don't have to face the truth. Your strength revealed. Chapter 2. Psychological breakdown. When you didn't chase, the narcissist didn't just feel surprised. They felt exposed. Every narcissist carries a fragile internal belief system built on illusions of superiority and desirability. Your silence threatens that illusion at its root. Suddenly they're scrambling to understand whether their value was real or manufactured. The first instinct they feel is denial. They convince themselves you must be playing hard to get, or you're trying to punish them emotionally. They tell themselves nobody walks away from them voluntarily. It has to be a reaction, never a choice, because if it were a choice, it would mean they weren't good enough to stay for. Then confusion sets in. Narcissists thrive on patterns, and you broke one. In their mind, love equals control. Connection equals compliance. Distance equals pursuit. But you flipped the formula. Your silence is evidence that their psychological map of you was flawed, and this threatens their entire sense of mastery. After confusion, the anxiety begins. Narcissists cannot tolerate uncertainty. They need definitive answers, certainty of influence, clarity of status. When you don't respond, their mind begins creating narratives, often dark ones. Are they seeing someone else? Did they replace me? Were they pretending the whole time? This anxiety quickly turns to obsession. The narcissist starts replaying every interaction, every moment of vulnerability they showed, every time they thought they had you emotionally cornered. They are looking for anything that explains why you didn't break. And here's where the irony hits them. They realize you had more strength than they ever accounted for, and narcissists hate strong partners. Strength means independence. Independence means unpredictability, And unpredictability means they can't rely on you for supply. Their ego begins to whisper the most painful fear they have. What if I didn't matter as much as I thought? What if I miscalculated? That single thought is more terrifying to them than losing you. It threatens their core sense of worth, which was never stable to begin with. To escape this fear, the narcissist shifts into blame. You become cold. You become cruel. You become ungrateful. They rewrite the story, so they're the victim. Because it's the only way to dodge the mirror that your strength forces them to face. Victimhood temporarily soothes their ego, but the illusion doesn't last long. Because beneath that blame, a darker feeling begins to rise. Anger. Not normal anger, but entitlement-based rage. The kind that comes from losing possession of something they believed belonged to them emotionally. And this is where we arrive at the turning point. Because this anger doesn't stay inside. It transforms into a desperate attempt to pull you back into orbit, even if they have to break every rule they pretended to live by. Let's move to chapter 3. The turning point. This is the moment where the narcissist realizes something they never prepared for. You're not coming back. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever in the way they expected. And this realization hits them like a cold blade to the ego. Because rejection isn't just painful for a narcissist, it's existential. It tells them they no longer control the story, and that loss of narrative power is unbearable. So the narcissist does what they always do when panic rises. They try to reverse the dynamic. They start small, liking old photos, watching your stories, asking mutual friends about you. These are entry points, tests, little hooks thrown into the water to see if you'll bite. It's not affection, it's reconnaissance. When subtlety fails, they escalate. You might get a random text, something neutral enough to disguise their real intention. Hey, how have you been? Just checking in. Hope you're okay. But underneath those words is a silent scream. Please react to me. Please validate me. Please prove I still matter. And when you don't respond, or you respond calmly, something inside them snaps. They're not used to being ignored. They're used to controlling the tempo of the relationship. But now you hold the rhythm, you set the pace, and that shift terrifies them. You've stolen the very thing they depend on, your emotional availability. This is when they begin rewriting history, not just for themselves but for anyone who will listen. Suddenly they were the committed one. Suddenly they were misunderstood. Suddenly you're the one who changed. They craft a narrative where they're still in control, because the truth that you walked away on your own is too threatening to accept. If rewriting history doesn't bring you back, they move to the next stage, provocation. They might post photos designed to get a reaction, talk to someone new publicly, or flaunt happiness they don't actually feel. It's not real. It's bait. They want you to break your silence. They want you to slip. They want proof they still affect you. But when you stay calm, when you don't react, don't chase, don't spiral, this creates something the narcissist rarely experiences: self-doubt. They start wondering whether you truly saw through them, whether you finally recognized the emotional games they relied on. This doubt is poison to their manufactured confidence. Then comes the most dramatic shift of all. They attempt to manufacture closeness. Maybe they apologize vaguely, hint at missing you, or pretend they've changed. But don't be fooled. This isn't transformation. It's strategy. It's their last attempt to re-establish the dynamic where you depend on them more than they depend on you. And when nothing works, when your silence continues, when your peace becomes obvious, when your emotional distance feels permanent, the narcissist experiences something they never expected. Fear. Not fear of losing you, but fear of losing the version of themselves that existed only when they were above you. That fear marks the beginning of their collapse, because the ecosystem of their ego cannot survive without control, and your refusal to chase is the one event that exposes just how fragile they've always been underneath the mask. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when this mask finally breaks. Chapter 4. Collapse and Consequences. This is where everything begins to unravel for the narcissist. The moment they realize you're not coming back, not to explain yourself, not to comfort them, not to stroke their ego, the ground beneath them shifts. It's not heartbreak they feel, it's ego death. Without your emotional reactions, they lose a key part of their identity, the part that relied on controlling your attention. They start replaying old conversations, not because they miss you, but because they're looking for proof they were still in control back then. They scroll through messages, re-examining every compliment you ever gave, searching for signs of dominance. But instead of reassurance, they find silence. Your silence. And it haunts them more than anything else. Then the paranoia sets in. Did you replace them? Did someone else see your worth? Did you figure out their tactics? They don't fear losing you as a person. They fear losing you as a resource, a reflection, a source of psychological supply. And when they can't answer these questions, the uncertainty gnaws at them like a slow-burning acid. This uncertainty pushes them into desperation. They start performing for an audience, any audience. They post more, brag more, exaggerate more. They need the world to believe they're thriving without you. But every staged smile, every edited photo, every forced display of happiness is really a message for you. Look at me. Please look at me. But you don't. And that absence destroys them. Because the narcissist never expected you to hold your silence this long. Never expected you to rebuild. Never expected you to rise. In their mind, you were always supposed to be the one who collapsed first. But now, for the first time, they're facing a version of you they cannot predict. Their inner world becomes chaotic. They lose sleep. They overthink. They replay scenarios where you chase them, beg them, fight for them, because that's the version of events that keeps their ego alive. But the reality is louder than their fantasies. You didn't chase. You walked away, and that single act rewrites the entire story. This realization triggers something rare in a narcissist. Regret. Not moral regret, not empathy-driven regret, but strategic regret. They regret losing access to someone who genuinely cared. They regret underestimating you. They regret assuming they had you forever. By the time they reach this stage, the narcissist is emotionally unrecognizable even to themselves. They oscillate between anger and longing, superiority and emptiness, denial and craving, and all of it leads to a single devastating conclusion, one they never thought they'd face. You hold the power now, and there's nothing they can do about it. Chapter 5. Final Truth and Healing. Here's the part they never wanted you to see. Once the narcissist realizes you're truly gone, they begin rewriting the entire relationship in their mind, not to honor it, but to survive it. They turn your strength into cruelty, your silence into betrayal, your healing into proof that you never cared. This distortion protects them from admitting the truth, that they lost someone irreplaceable. But deep down, under the layers of denial and arrogance, something else grows, a quiet fear. Not fear of you returning or confronting them, fear of being forgotten. Narcissists are terrified of fading out of someone's emotional world. Your ability to move forward becomes the one thing they cannot tolerate, because it forces them to face how small their influence truly was. And the strangest part? Your peace becomes their torment. Every sign that you're doing better, your smile, your calmness, your stability, becomes a reminder of the one thing they couldn't destroy, your resilience. They expected your life to crumble without them. Instead, it expanded. That contradiction hits them like a psychological earthquake. The narcissist starts imagining alternate timelines, versions of the story where you chased them, where you begged, where you fell apart. These fantasies soothe them temporarily. But the real timeline, the one where you chose yourself over their chaos, cuts deeper than they'll ever admit. Your strength rewrites the narrative they built around themselves. And while they'll never say it out loud, your silence becomes a mirror they can't escape. It makes them question their charm, their power, their ability to control. For someone whose entire identity is built on superiority, this crack in their illusion is catastrophic. It threatens the persona they've spent their whole life polishing. But here's where healing begins for you. Understanding that their obsession has nothing to do with your worth as a person. It's about their inability to regulate emptiness. You didn't haunt them because you were weak. You haunt them because you broke the cycle. You walked away from the gravitational pull of their ego, and that's something they can neither forgive nor forget. The universe has a strange way of balancing things. The heartbreak they once inflicted returns to them, not as punishment, but as consequence. They feel the loss in slow, delayed waves, long after yours has healed. By the time they realize what they had, you're already standing in a different chapter of your life, looking back with clarity instead of longing. And this is the final twist. They may try to come back someday, not out of love, not out of growth, but out of hunger. A narcissist returns when their options shrink, when their new supply fails, when reality becomes too heavy to bear alone. But when they come back, they will not find the same version of you they once manipulated. Because the moment you stopped chasing them, you transformed. You stopped being their emotional hostage and became the one thing they never expected, the person who survived them. Your strength, your silence, your healing, it all becomes your liberation, and nothing terrifies a narcissist more than someone they can no longer influence. So here's the truth you deserve to hear. Their shock was your awakening. Their loss was your beginning. Their expectations were chains, but your refusal to beg turned those chains into broken links. You walked away from their chaos and built something they will never understand. Peace. And that peace will haunt them far longer than they ever haunted you.